Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, so we have what, 5 people, but we'll start no matter. All right. Okay. Before we go on to our session proper, let's take a very quick recap of what we did last time in the last class. So in the last class, what we did was we mapped your expectations, right? So some of your expectations were like Arvind said, to understand change, how to create OD interventions. Ritu wanted to have the big picture expertise on change management as to how does one go about making a change management. Anupam had said organizations are evolving and technology is evolving at a very fast pace. And how does OD enable to address these changes in the organization as well as in the tech landscape? Parveen he wanted to know whether OD is only for the biggies, the big corporations or big companies, or even small companies also can do OD interventions in a small way, of course, yes. And King Su wanted to understand how the entire organization functions. Shivani, how can mid-level, the OD interventions or large-scale change management, it has the involvement and the sponsorship of the top executives, people right at the top, and she wanted to know to what extent the mid-level executives, what is the role of the mid-level executives in a OD intervention and change management. Priyanka, how a LNE professional can contribute to OD. Is it only for the HR people, or the people at strategy level, or if LNE professionals also can contribute to OD and change management? Dr. Ketan wanted to know the entire gamut of the org life, from conception to maturity, from a OD perspective, like how OD intervention is conceived and how the entire life cycle of a OD intervention. So these were your expectations, and we also did set the ground rules for ourselves. The first and foremost, which you had mentioned, which I believe many of you don't believe in, is punctuality. So it's 2:05, and we just have what 7 people with us. So punctuality, unless of course you will move to the other optional, which is talent management. Participation is important. So rather than just listening to me talking on this side of the screen, I do expect and hope that everyone who is in this session would interact with, participate, so that we benefit from everyone's experience rather than me talking to you. Then discipline from everyone. Chat should be enabled. I'm not sure whether the chat is enabled. I had asked someone to do it. All right, and video should be uploaded on time. Last week's video, we will upload the video of last week and this week. Today's sometime this week, so that I would assure you. All right, so this is how we will proceed. Introduction to org change, steps and models of change management, process of change management, organization development. What are the various models of organization development, and when and how to use it? And finally, we will end with overall course overview and maybe a quiz at the end. We also talked about the VUCA word, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This is what informs our world today. In fact, it has become more volatile, more uncertain, more complex, and more ambiguous after the worldwide impact of the pandemic, COVID-19, which shows no sign of ending. There's a tiny light at the end of the tunnel, but we are still long way off from normalcy. In fact, normalcy, they say, is not going to happen ever. It just changes everything, right? Even after the vaccine comes and it's proven, which may take about 3-4 years. Still, the way things are done, the way business happens, the way we lead our lives, everything is going to change. So it's like AC, BC and AD, right? Before Christ and Anno Domini. To 2020 is going to be a watershed year, and we normalcy is never going to get established. So that will be the new normal, right? Okay. So we talked about what it means to live in a world which is low in volatility and high volatility, low uncertainty, high uncertainty, low complexity, high complexity, and low ambiguity. We also talked about like the what we understand by these two terms: organizational development and change management, and we found that the results as to what OD is or what organization change is, it's mind-boggling. There are on Amazon, there are at least 4,783 books on organization change. Similarly, on change management, the number of books which people have written on change management is 12,185, right? Okay, and organization change. There are you just type organization change, there would be more than 100,000 results, and on change management there are 10,000 results, and 50,000 results in organization development alone, right? So we in the last week we also talked about whether OD and change management is a fad or there's some substance to it, right? So we talked about various OD interventions which have happened in the past. I'm not saying that all OD interventions are OD interventions per se are fads, but there are organizations who use these OD interventions as fads, as if they are flavor of the month. The CEO reads a book on particular model or a particular business concept, and he or she wants to be the first to implement it, and then the next time she takes another flight to another city and picks up a book giving another model. She wants the organization to try that out, right? Flavor of the month. So we talked about quality circles, which were huge in the mid 80s of the last century, and gradually petered out towards end of the 80s. So, similarly, TQM, it had its heydays in the early 90s. After the quality circles, they petered out. So the first 5 years of 90s were the heydays for TQM, and again it petered out towards the beginning of the century. Similarly, BPR as a concept, business process reengineering, it had the similar kind of graph as TQM, starting in the early 90s and petering out in towards the end of the century. So, are we joining the fad cycle, or we are into something which we believe in, right? So that's the question we need to ask ourselves whenever we want to uh, introduce or start a OD intervention. We need to ask ourselves: is it a fad or a flavor of the month which we are catering to the CEO's wishes, or does the organization actually need it, right? So that's something which we need to ask ourselves. Is it whether it is quality circle or TQM or world class manufacturing or lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, agile. So are these the buzzwords? And we are catering to the buzzwords. We want to be organizations who would like to boast of having been there and done that, or your organization actually needs it, right? So that's the big question before you start any OD intervention or any change management. This is a very critical question which we need to ask ourselves, whether just another fad or your organization actually needs that. Right. Now, we also introduced this picture to you, where it says if you all you have in your toolbox, all you have is a hammer, then everything actually looks like a nail, right? Because that goes for any consultant actually, or any expert in a particular field. If you are a coach, then every business problem looks to you as a coaching problem, right? So it has actually two reasons. The first reason is that you don't have any other tool in your toolkit to address that particular problem. So if you are left with just one tool, you'd rather use it rather than passing it on to somebody else. So since you have bought that tool and you have built expertise on that particular tool, might as well use it. So that's one of the reasons why everything looks like a nail to you if you have a hammer. Second is that it's a bread and butter issue also, right? Like certifications don't come easy. They don't come cheap, right? So like if you want to be say a coach under ICF, then you have to spend at least anywhere between say 1.5 to 3 lakh rupees. Similarly, if you want to get certified on the Marshall course, well, again 2.5 3 lakhs you have to it creates a hole in your pocket. So all these certifications, all the they do. I mean, they are costly. So if you have acquired those after spending so much money, then I might actually use them. And that's the reason why everything looks like a nail to you if you just have hammer. So if you are an expert, or if you gain some expertise in OD intervention or change management, look at the problems of the organization from a non-jaundiced eye, uh, setting aside what your expertise is. And it's always better to have a second opinion or a third opinion before you commit yourself to OD intervention, because OD interventions are costly affairs, right? So apart from being originating from your CEO's fad, it also originates from a felt need of the organization, or you may diagnose the organization as having a particular need. So before you get into the business of starting your own intervention, remember this particular slide, whether you are looking a nail in the face because you have a hammer, or actually that nail needs hammering. So that's something you need to ask yourself before actually you start OD intervention. All right, so this is where we had ended our last class. So going forward from there, let's see what organization change is about, right? So a simple definition of organization change is that it's a planned alteration of organization components to improve effectiveness of the organization. So it has, if you look at the definition closely, it has at least three components to it, three elements to it. So the first element is it's a planned alteration, right? It doesn't happen by accident. An organizational change does not happen by accident. So you have to plan for it. So it's a planned alteration of organizational components. So what the organizational components are, we will get in the next bullet point. So it's a planned alteration of organizational components to improve effectiveness of the organization, right? It's a either it will be a wholesale kind of improvement in the organization. Or wholesale improvement would be, say, something like there's a merger and acquisition, and you want to introduce change management as part of that M&A which has happened. So that will be kind of a wholesale kind of improvement of the effectiveness of the organization subsequent to that merger and acquisition. Or it can be only part of it, in the sense new equipment has come into to the organization, or say something like a chatbot has been introduced in the HR in its bid to say improve the functioning of the HR department, and some of the function of the HRBP, which was being handled by uh, HR executive, say, has been taken over by this chatbot, so that the HRBP is her time is freed up for more value-added stuff. So so how to integrate the chatbot into the functioning of the HR department would be a small scale kind of change management, which will happen where uh, the employees need to know how to interact with the chatbot. The HR needs to know how to customize the chatbot to the particular need of the organization, and also going forward how to use the data which is created for future use. Uh, and let me just mute everyone. Right. Okay. So if that is how we look at organizational change, what are the organizational components, right? Which we want to improve. So, or which we want to alter so that the organization becomes more effective. So the organizational components are the MBV, which is mission, vision, and values. The organization's vision, mission, and the goals. The organization components also would include its strategy, its structure, its processes and systems and technology, and of course its people. So when we are talking about organization change, is a planned alteration of organizational components to improve effectiveness of the organization. We are talking about these: the mission, vision, values, the strategy, structure, processes, system, technology, and of course the people also. All right. So okay. So let me introduce you to the first of the model which organizations use uh, to do an effective change management. This model is called the 7S framework. And this model was given by McKinsey. In fact, it was two of their associates who created this model. Uh, the names are you might have read the book or heard about the book In Search of Excellence. Have you read the book, guys? In Search of Excellence? Yes or no? Hello.
No, sir.
No,
No,
sir.
no. Okay, all right. So I would strongly suggest it's an old book. I think it came out sometime in mid 80s, but it's a seminal book. It's a seminal book. In Search of Excellence. And this was written by two McKinseyans. They are Tom Peters and Robert Waterman. Tom Peters and Robert Waterman. So when they suggested this particular framework, they uh, they were part of McKinsey. Then they moved on, and Tom Peters actually he became huge later once after this book was published, and so he's considered to be a management guru and the big one at that in the 20th century towards the end of it. All right, so they suggested this particular framework for any large scale change management to be effective. So okay. So this framework it's called 7S, and it has the elements of this framework are in two parts. The first part is the ones which are on the top, which is strategy, structure, and systems. These are called the hard S. Okay. So strategy, structure, and systems are the hardest. And the hardest, why is it called hardest? Because they are actually visible, right? So they could be in black and white, and you can actually see them in a particular document in the organization. Like there are SOPs, standard operating procedures, which could be part of the system. So there would be SOPs which are there in organizations. So there would be a strategy document in the organization. The structure, the organization structure, is there for everybody to see. So these are called the RS. The other three, which is the skills, staff, and style, they are called the soft tests, right? They are soft because they are not visible. They can only be demonstrated in behaviors, and there are you cannot write it down and say that yes, this is it, right? So the skills the employees possess, the style of the management, the management style, decision making style, communication styles, and the staff, the capability of the staff, the competencies of the staff. So you cannot reach out and touch these in an organization, but they are there, and you can gauge them from the way it is demonstrated in people's behavior, whether at the top level or at the middle level or bottom level. So these are called the soft skills. Now you would find the seventh S, which is shared values, right at the middle of all the remaining six, the hardest and softest, because it informs every other aspect of the organization. The shared values informs the structure, shared values informs the strategy, the systems, skills, style, and stuff. Like shared value, suppose how does shared value, suppose a shared value of an organization is say transparency. How would that inform the organization structure? Can somebody try and tell us? Suppose the shared value of the organization, say an organization like say Infosys, right? So if the shared value is structure is transparency, how will it affect the other S's? How will it affect the structure? How will transparency affect structure? Yes, guys, we have to have a conversation. If it is a one-way lecture, then you are actually switching off your brain and you are not thinking, right? Then let's have a conversation. How will a shared value, which is say transparency, how do you expect it to affect any of the remaining success?
So, this is Ritu this side.
Yes, Ritu.
So, if we talk about one aspect, that is transparency, so probably like the style of leadership here, the whatever changes are going to be in the policies or whatever we are the future vision, that is
Hmm.
openly communicated to the employees in the meetings, in the annual meetings, and
Mhm.
why we are taking this step, what would be the advantages or profits, or what would
Okay.
be the disadvantages. So it is an
Yeah.
open float of that idea and what we are aiming for in future. So those things probably in the leadership we will be observing. Sir.
Okay. So a transparent culture, a core value, will it lead to a pyramid type of organizational structure, or will it be more conducive to a flat kind of organization?
Mm. I think sir, it will be more suitable for a flat kind of
Exactly,
organization.
exactly. Right. So,
Flat.
so you just saw that a shared value like transparency would affect the structure, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Similarly, it will affect the strategy also. Like instead of being a purely top-down kind of strategy, it may actually be they would ask for crowdsourcing also, like IBM. It does a lot of crowdsourcing from their own employees, ideas from their own employees, right? A company like 3M, which is transparent, which will ask employees for their ideas, and they have this written down policy or mission to have 20% of their revenue coming from new products every year, mind you, right? So the shared values will affect the structure, it will affect the strategy, it will affect the systems, the skills, style of management or style of decision making and stuff. Right. So shared value is and that's the reason why shared values is at the core of the 7S between hard S and soft S. Similarly, apart from being affected by shared values, these six S's are they affect each other also. Like the structural affect strategy, structural affect scale, staff, style, and system. Now, if you want to have a practical aspect to it, and how do you
Yeah.
how to use this
Yeah.
7S in your own organization, you could actually do do a task like this uh, to find out how your 7Ss in the organization where you are working, how do they relate to each other and in the current situation, and going forward, how they can relate to the future situation as well, so that when you are moved from point A to point B, you know what kind of OD intervention you would be targeting, right? So have a simple matrix like this, and try this particular exercise. You can do it even in your own organization, right? So how does the shared values they relate to strategy? How is it linked to the structure, system, style, staff, skill as of today, right? Similarly, there would be others. You can try out everything else,
ये
right?
तो भैया किया
Similarly, and for a future situation, like you're moving from
भैया से
a
पूछ ले
hidebound. Hang on,
पूछ ले ये दोनों क्या है भैया ये दो कमेंट
guys. After you have spoken, I would request everyone to put yourself on silent so that the background noises don't come. All right. So and when you are moving from point A to point B, right? That will help you in deciding which OD intervention is right for you, right? Try this exercise. It's interesting, and you can do it for your own organization and or any organization you have worked for before. Okay, so now coming to the next model, which is this was given by Michael Prier and Nitin Noria, and they actually wrote a book called Cracking the Code of Change, right? So they talked about two types of uh, the two types of OD interventions, or large scale change management, which normally happens in organizations, and they called it theory E and theory O. E stands for economic improvement, and theory O stands for organizational capability, right? So, in fact, as you would have guessed, okay, let me ask you this question: which do you think? Suppose there are 100 OD interventions in the last say couple of years. Which do you think would take the cake in terms of percentage? Theory E or theory O? Would there be more number of OD interventions for economic improvement, or would there be more number of OD intervention for improving organizational capabilities? What do you think?
Economic or improvement, sir? Theory.
Yeah, theory, right? Why do you think there are more number of OD interventions for economic improvement rather than organizational capabilities? Why do you think so?
They are forced. They are forced basically. They are from outside, I think.
Okay, all right. Why else? Why do you think? Yeah, that's one. reason why economic improvement, OD interventions for economic improvement, it outnumbers drastically the other type of
Usually,
interventions.
Suketu here,
Yes,
usually
okay.
OT interventions are mostly over the last few years have been reactive.
Yeah.
And for that, you need some external trigger, and the main trigger has always been economic.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
like-
very good. Okay, all right. See, economic improvement is visible. It is short term, and it's easier to relate to, and easier to sell to your stakeholders or your shareholders, rather than the organizational capabilities improvement in. Because improvement in organizational capability is long term. You cannot show how it is in sync with your profit, or since it is long term, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, right? But the theory O kind of OD interventions are the interventions which are which actually leads to the sustainability of the organization in the long run. The theory E kind of OD intervention may improve the shareholder value in the short term, in a couple of years. But if you want long-term sustenance of the organization, and the way to go is to build the capability of the organization, and to build the capability of the organization means to build the capability of your people, right? So Beer and Noria, they get this model of theory E and theory O, and they uh, their suggestion was to have a mix of theory E and theory O. Theory E, the dimensions of change in theory E and theory O are slightly different. And what Beer and Noria suggested was a combination of theory E and O. Right from the beginning, rather than it being a step-by-step process. What happens in theory E is the goals. How do they differ? Actually, they differ in the goals. The theory E is the goal is to maximize the shareholder value. If the your return on investment, on the market capitalization, the net profit, if everything increases, then naturally the shareholder value will increase. So that's the goal of theory E. Whereas theory O, the goal of theory O is to develop the organizational capabilities. So this is the outlook is long term, as to how the organization will survive in the long run, how to develop a talent pipeline, how to improve the skills of the employees. Now, theory, when you combine the theories E and O, the goal will be to explicitly embrace the paradox between the economic value and organizational capability. Uh, so he, in fact, they have given in that article, which I will share with you. In that article, they have talked about two organizations in the same industry, and they were into the paper industry. And one organization in that industry which hired the CEO, whose job was to increase the shareholder value, right? And he was actually called Chenso Al. the CEO, and he came in and he basically cut the employee size by almost two-thirds, right? And took several other measures which increased the value of the company almost threefold in 3 years' time. And ultimately, what happened was that organization it lost its talent, because once you start using the chainsaw, then you create an atmosphere of fear, and people will leave the ship. And what happened was all the talent was lost to competitors, and the company was finally sold off to one of the competitors. That's what actually had happened. Whereas in the theory O, the goal was to develop the capabilities so this was another organization in the same industry, and the CEO he tried to increase the capabilities of its employees, and during the entire OD intervention which he undertook, there was not a single layoff or sacking in that organization. And the shareholder value did increase. It took some time. It took I think 6 to 8 years to improve, but it was outlier in terms of sustainability and profit after that period. And finally, it was a valued company. It got sold off to Kimberly Clark, one of the big ones in the paper industry. The second is the leadership, right? How does the theory E and theory O differ in terms of leadership? Theory E is always the change is managed top down. The concept, the very idea of OD intervention starts at the top, and it is managed from the top. Whereas in theory O, although the idea comes from the top, the top management they encourage participation from bottom up. So everyone is involved. It's kind of a collaborative OD intervention rather than a command and control kind of OD intervention, which is the theory E. The focus of theory is to emphasize the structure and the systems. So most of the changes which happen are in the organizational structure. In the that's why a lot of chopping happens at various levels, cutting and chopping, and a lot of emphasis also laid on the tweaking the systems and processes in the organization. Whereas in theory O, the focus is on building the corporate culture, building capabilities of the organizations. They also attack employees' behaviors and attitudes. They try to change the employees' behavior and attitude in the hope that the changed behaviors and attitudes will lead to better performance in future. In the process, the theory E it emphasizes on plan and establish program. Theory E actually it's like a war, right? So there's a war room, and everything has to be planned out to the T from beginning to the end, and the top management and top executives they behave as warlords or commanders, and they drive it from the top. Whereas in theory O, there's a lot of experimentation which goes on. right? So in the example which Beer and Noria they give of the second organization which tried out theory O, they talked about this company actually starting a few experimental stores in retailing, and how the experimental store it paid dividends, and it created capabilities in the employees, and how it was replicated in other geographies as well. So a lot of experimentation happens in theory O. Reward system, the theory O proponents, they believe a lot in motivation through financial incentive, like the incentives, the pay packages. They are there's a very coherent and strict correlation between the change happening and profitability increasing, performance happening with pay increases or payment of incentives. Whereas in theory O, although there is a component of incentive being paid out, but that's not used as a motivator, but as basically a reward for something work well done. Motivation is mainly through building commitment of the employees rather than showing the carrot to the employees as more incentive or more pay rise. The theory E and theory O, they differ in terms of the reward system as well. Then the use of, yeah. Okay. So how do the proponents of theory E and theory O, they use the consultants? In theory E, there's a lot of dependence on the consultants. Consultants are used as experts. Consultants are used as people who actually drive the show. It's their show basically, and it is the consultants who would analyze the problem, who will create the solutions, and they will drive the solutions in the organization through the active support and sponsorship of the top management. Whereas in theory O, the consultants they support the management in shaping their own solutions. Basically, they are facilitators rather than experts. So the consultants in theory O kind of OD interventions, they bringing their expertise, but they walk by the side of the organization rather than lead the organization through the OD intervention or change. So these are basically the differences between theory E and theory O in terms of goals, leadership, focus, process, reward system, and their use of the concepts. Now, what happens? I mean, the question to you is: suppose you in your organization want to introduce OD intervention by combining the best elements of theory E and theory O. Uh, should theory E and theory O they should follow each other, either first theory E and theory O, or then theory O and theory E. Which is the best? Say for example, General Electric under Jack Wells. Jack Wells, he was at the helm of General Electric for almost a decade, right? I think from 1987 to 98 or something. And he started off as a theory E person, right? He started off chopping and cutting the headcount drastically all across the world. He started reducing the number of businesses GE is in. He's the one who introduced the concept of the one-two concept. Have you heard of the one-two concept of GE? Any of you guys? What
No,
is
sir.
one-two?
No,
Okay.
sir.
So one-two concept in GE is basically Jack Welch. He said that I mean the GE, just like Tata's, they are into everything, right? Used to be in everything. Like Tata's, they are from they are into the business of making salt, right up to the most complicated of electronic items, cars and power, everything, right? So similarly, GE was also into several products. So what Jack Welch told his employees is the people in GE is that how do we know which businesses to keep and which business to hive off? He had a very simple solution to that. He said he created that one-two principle. Either a business becomes number one or number two in that particular category. If you are not number one or number two worldwide in that particular business, then that's a trigger to hive up that business. So if you are not number one or number two, you have no business to be in that business, right? Uh, Very simple aphorism, and he actually used that. He made the businesses either number one or number two in the world, or he just hyped up those businesses heartlessly. So that's what he did. And in the first 5 to 6 years of uh, his tenure as the head of G, he was known as the Neutron Jack. Any idea why was he known as Neutron Jack? What does a neutron bomb do? What does a neutron bomb do? Suppose a neutron bomb is it is dropped on Delhi NCR. What will happen? Any idea?
Massive,
Okay,
large accumulation.
large scale destruction. Yeah. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. The difference between an atom bomb and a neutron bomb is that atom bomb will decimate, apart from taking lives of people, it decimates the buildings, everything which is there, right? Whereas a neutron bomb, it does not do anything to the buildings or the structure. It just kills people, right? So the victors, they don't have to come in and build afresh. They have to they because the people are not there and everything else is intact. They have the whole infrastructure, right? So just there the people have to come in and start working. So what Jack Welch did was he just decimated the employees. Like he reduced the employees by almost one-third worldwide. Hundreds and thousands of people, they just lost their jobs. But the infrastructure stayed intact for the people who stayed on to use. So that's why he was called the neutron jack. So, right. Okay. So what he did was he started off with theory E, and those of you who are into HR, you would know that he also afterwards he created some very innovative HR systems and processes and building capabilities. He introduced concept where anybody from anywhere in the organization hierarchy can question the top leadership or top executives in any forum. So he brought in a lot of transparency and communication into the organization, and he built an organization which actually listens to his people, right? So he moved from theory E to theory O, right? Now, what? Although Jack Welch was successful in doing that, but Beer and Noria, they suggest that this may be a difficult proposition for every organization. Why do you think once the CEO has done a OD intervention on theory E principle, why should it be difficult for him or her to move to theory O at a later point of time? Any idea? Why should it be difficult? What could be the reason to move from theory O to theory E to theory O at a later point?
The
So,
people trust
yeah.
the way they did they vote, rather they would be in a scared situation.
Exactly.
Yes.
So people will be scared, right? So those who survive the head chopping, right? They would be shit scared, right? To speak their mind or to take on any risk or for the responsibilities. So they would try to save their chair, right? Save their position. So that's one. Okay. Any other reason why moving from theory E to theory O is difficult?
A drastic change in
Stakeholders were disappointed, sir, and
Yeah, people would be disappointed in the there'd be a lack of trust in the management, right? So they are there only to improve the shareholder value rather than valuing the employees or their development or the sustainability of the organization, right? So that'd be a huge kind of trust deficit if you are moving from theory E to theory O. Now, the reverse. Suppose you start off as a theory O person and then you move to theory E. Then what happens? How easy or difficult will it be? From theory O to theory E.
So I think that will be comparatively easier because theory E, you are more focused on building capabilities where
Mhm.
employees will have more confidence in the organization. And
Yeah.
I think they will be very motivated and they will focus more when we go through the change process. And at that time, I think moving from theory O to E will be comparatively easier.
Comparatively easier. All right. Okay. So, is there any downside for moving from theory O to theory E? I do agree with you that it will be comparatively
So
easier.
yeah, sir,
What
I
would be
think
the downside?
so duration is a bit longer, so it's gonna take more time to move from theory O to E. So more resources, more money, and more time is needed, I believe. So
Okay.
that is the
Okay.
kind of downside as per
Right.
me.
Okay. Any other downside? Moving from O to E.
So it may
If
not be
people
so
are
much predictable of the time as he mentioned, sir, because
Yeah.
organizational capability, you may not be sure how much you are going to develop. It depends
Right.
on everything.
Right. Right. Okay. Anybody else?
So people may think that it is a they may still lose trust because on one side they are focusing on building the capabilities, on the other side they'll be firing people, so may lead to some sort of a confusion and distrust.
Exactly. Right, Urvasi. Uh, People will look at it as a let down, right? You started off with building the capability, and suddenly you are asking for the numbers, right? So people will feel let down by the CEO. That's the reason why moving from E to O or O to E, one after the other, it has its downside. So what the Noria and Beer they propose is to use both combined and almost simultaneously. So what happens if you are using these in a combined manner? What happens to the goals? In the goals, basically, you explicitly embrace the paradox between economic value and organizational capability, and you say so in no uncertain terms that yes, we are not a NGO or we are not organization which is not for profit, right? So profit is important to us, but we are not the, in fact, when I was doing my MBA in our macroeconomic class, there was one professor Adhikari, right? So he introduced us to a very simple difference between profit motivation and profit in addition to others. So he talked about. Let me just see if I can write it. Yeah. So okay. So these are two statements: profit maximization and profit maximization. And in the first one is profit is underlined. In the second, maximization is underlined. Can you tell me, are they the same or they are different? And if different, what is the difference? One is profit maximization. Profit is underlined. The second is profit maximization. Maximization is underlined. Are they the same? They are different.
Not sure, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because
yeah,
you say there is a difference.
Try. Yeah.
I assume that the focus on profit means that the focus is on figures,
Yeah.
on difference between what is the output and what is the input, just the cost or the in actual figures.
Yeah.
And maximization would mean that we don't just focus on the figures, but also on the potential and all the subsets of stakeholders and contributors also, and getting the maximum efficiency and effectiveness out of them.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? You are on the right track. Yes. Anybody else would like to?
So I had a very lay idea, like
It
profit.
seems it seems
Hang on.
in profit maximization we are talking about.
Parveen, wait. Let Ritu say first. Yeah, Ritu.
Thanks, Praveenji. Just a profit maximization. Profit means maybe the short-term kind of a thing. Profit we are focusing, and profit maximization is how we can sustain that profit for long. So this was my lay idea, sir.
Okay. Great. Yeah, Parveen.
It's in second case like profit maximization. It's competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Like we have heard like Apple have a competitive advantage. So they developing a long, like Ritu ma'am said, developing a long-term vision to have a maximization profit, which can be achieved only through competitive advantage.
Right.
Developing
So
various resources. Which,
in the first one,
yes.
you have a blinkered vision. Like you see nothing other than profit, right? So shareholder values, maximization of shareholder values, increasing your market capitalization, everything is for profit and profit alone. Whereas in profit maximization, your one of your goals is profit, right? Like you have in the balance scorecard. So what does the balance scorecard says? Balance scorecard says there are four things which you pitch for in a balance scorecard as per the organization is concerned. You have profit, you have customer, you have learning and development, and you have process, right? So profit is there, right? Profit, you have to necessarily maximize whatever you can as far as the profit is concerned, but you are not blind to the other aspects of the organizations, like customer, like learning and development, like process improvement of the process, right? That's what it means. It means that profit is not everything. Profit is important, but profit is not everything. So the goal in the combined theories of E and O is explicitly embrace the paradox between economic value and organizational capability, and recognize that both are important and both have to be pursued, right? So maybe the profit will come after a little lag, but that will sustain the organization for the long term, right? Second is leadership. In the theory E and O combined, leadership will basically set the direction from the top, because any OD intervention, no matter whether it's E, O, or whatever, it has to come from the top. It can never be from the bottom. But if it comes from the bottom, it has to have the endorsement and sponsorship of the top to survive, else it will peter out. So the leadership needs to set direction from the top and engage the people from the below. Even if the ideas are crowdsourced, still these have to be adopted by the top management for it to succeed. The focus in the hybrid model is that focus is simultaneously on the hard as well as the soft aspects. You have seen the hard S's and soft S's in the 7S model. So the strategy, structure, and the systems need to be stressed. Also, the style, skills, and the staff. These also needs to be stressed. And within the overall ecosystem of the shared goals. So all the 7 S's need to be focused simultaneously. The process in theory E is to the plan and establish programs is the process they follow. Everything has to be done to the T, whereas theory O, it encourages experimentation. And theory E is planning for spontaneity, right? Uh, so have you read the book Blink? Heard about it? How do we get the intuition? Is it something magical, or there is a some structure to it? How does one get intuition?
Combination of noting the nonverbal signs and
I'm sorry?
experience.
Okay, I didn't get that.
A combination of noting the nonverbal signs and experience and analysis
Yeah,
of both.
yeah, exactly. Intuition is nothing magical. It's not something which is inborn, and some people have better intuition and some people don't because of their gene or their DNA. It has nothing to do with that. Intuition is basically something which comes from your subconscious, and if you are if you are experienced, if you are knowledgeable, then it is seen that people who are experienced and knowledgeable, they have more intuitions than people who are not. So intuition actually is you can plan for intuition, although it does sound like an oxymoron, but it's a fact. that people who are more experienced and more knowledgeable have more intuitions and more accurate intuitions than people who are not, right? So theory E and O combined is planning for spontaneity. So you cannot just leave everything to accident. It does emphasize that the OD intervention need to be planned, and it should have it should be flexible enough to have a room for spontaneity as well. Reward system, whereas the theory E, it emphasizes it's basically a carrot and stick. The theory E is carrot and stick, whereas the reward system in the theory O is the motivation is through commitment building rather than through financial incentive. They do use rewards and recognition and incentive as a fair exchange of values which the employees bring into the organization, but it's not a motivator. Whereas in theory, E and O combined, the incentives are used to reinforce change, but not to drive it. So reinforcement is different from driving it. In theory E, the incentives actually drive the change, whereas in the combined hybrid model, incentives are used to reinforce. If the good behavior happens, you use a little incentive to ensure that the good behavior is repeated. So that's how incentives and rewards are used in the combined model. And how do you use consultants in the combined model? Consultants are experts. Yeah, no doubt they are experts. So in theory E as well as theory O, the consultants are used as experts. They bring in knowledge and expertise which is not available in the organization. And the expertise is used in theory E as if the consultants are the commanders, whereas in the combined in the hybrid model, they use the experts to empower the employees. The employees, it's like giving somebody a piece of fish, or teaching someone to fish, right? So when you give somebody a fish, that person will quench his hunger for a particular day, right? And the next day he is again hungry. You have to give another piece of fish to him. Whereas if you teach somebody to fish, you are empowering him. So you are not creating dependency of that person on you, that you will give a fish as a handout to him every day. So he has to come to you for a handout to quench his hunger. To empower people is to teach them to fish. So consultants in the hybrid model, they their job is to teach fishing to the employees, so that they are empowered and they can fish themselves to ward of hunger. So these are the differences between purely theory E or theory O model, or a hybrid model, which Beer and Noria they suggest. Okay, we did not cover the first part of this slide, where how did the change happen, right? Uh, and how is change motivated? uh, why organizations change. The changes can be motivated for three reasons. One is due to reaction to the adversity in the present, like something is pinching you, something, there's a nail in your shoe, and it pinches you when you're walking, and you take action to remove that nail, right? So if there is an adversity in your current situation, and you want the organization to tide over that adversity, then you undertake OD intervention. Second is preparation for the future, right? So your present is not that bad, and you are making money, and but the future is, as you see, look into the crystal ball, the future is different, and if you continue as you are, so the possibility is that you may fall by the wayside, because the way the technology is moving, the way things are changing. If you continue to do what you have been doing so far, possibly you will not succeed. So preparation for the future also could be a trigger for OD intervention. So one is something wrong with your present, you want to change that. Second is you want to prepare yourself for the future, right? uh, there is this book called Competing for the Future, right, by CK Prahlad, where he talks about seizing the future at present. So you work for developing competencies for the future today, right? So that the future is yours. So preparation for the future. Third is learning from the past, something which did not work too well in the past, and you want to avoid such situations to arise in the future. So you do a OD intervention for that. So your present, your past, and your future would be cues to the need for a OD intervention, which you can undertake, right? So, all right. Any questions so far? When we had talked about 7S model of McKinsey, we have talked about Pierre and Noria's theory, E theory, O model. We have talked about why organizations change, or why do they need to have OD intervention. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. So we move on to the next one, which is when. We have talked about why organizations change. Let's talk about when the organizations change, right? So when the organizations change, okay. So on the y-axis you have growth, on the x-axis we have time, right? So when do you decide that it is time to change, right? So on, when the curve, this is called the tipping point, right? This point, yeah, this point is called the tipping point. So when the organization reaches the tipping point, that's the time to change, right? Else it will be either flattened or it will go downhill, right? So the way organizations move is, like I said, this is the organizational life cycle. So if you do not, you don't actually start taking action at this point, because at that time it's already too late, right? So you have to necessarily start taking action when you are at this stage, right? So suppose you are a one product company, right? And your entire revenue is uh, predicated to only one product. Now that product has a life cycle, right? And the life cycle goes like this. So there's a take off stage, then there is a stage where it's a cash cow, it's milking money, then it tapers off and it goes, right? So the product dies. Now, unless you take action at this point, right, your company is gone. Now if you invest in R&D at this stage, and you develop another product which will again have a life cycle like this, so where your company would have declined at this stage, it will get a fresh lease of life from here to here, right? So now, when do you take action in the next cycle? You take action at this stage so that you develop another, right? So instead of the company dying out here, right, or here, its life gets extended to here, right? So you need to have OD intervention, right, at the time where you are on the upswing, right? So if you have reached this point, it's too late, right? So this is the time to change.
Sir, I
Now,
want to ask one thing.
yeah.
If the company is not willing to invest in a new product, so
Mhm.
in that case, how they can ensure that they can sustain or they can overcome the change that is happening in the environment?
Uh, it's difficult. It's difficult
Yes,
for that organization to survive, right?
yes,
So either the company learns from its past, right, not
okay,
to repeat the same mistake in future. For that, you need to have a intervention. Or if something is pinching now, right,
yes,
and that will start pinching at this stage, right? The
yes,
pinch will be at this stage, but then at that time it's too late actually to do it. The time to think about something, right, is here when you are on the upswing rather than downswing, right?
yes,
Or if you are not taking any action for meeting the future, like you must have heard about the company called what's his name, Kodak, right?
yes,
In 1998, Kodak had almost 90 plus percentage of world uh, paper, the photo paper, right? And
yes,
they had around 176,000 employees across almost 130 countries, right?
yes,
And by 2005, they were gone. They just died in 6 7 years time. They were effaced from the face of the earth, right? Similarly, if you look at the there's a list called Fortune 500 list, right? And
yes,
the Fortune 500 list actually started sometime in mid 50s, right? If you look at the companies which were there in the Fortune 500 in mid 50s, you would actually be surprised as to how many people have survived today, right? So
yes,
there would be hardly one or two, like IBM would be there, and that's all, maybe one or two. So why do people die out, right? So unless you pull up your socks and take note and take action, you're bound to die out. So there's this famous model, the 5 stages of decline, right? In stage one, if you when you when I'll answer your question a little later also with another example,
okay,
how the companies try to survive. Stage one is the hubris. What is hubris? It was made famous by Derek O'Brien when he talked about hubris of BJP in the Rajya Sabha. What is hubris? Arrogance, basically, right?
okay,
So when you do very well, like IBM in the 60s and 70s, right? They were called the big blue, right? And there was virtually no competition for them, right? So that was the stage for them. Hubris, the arrogance which was born out of success, that we are the one, we nobody can touch us, nobody can come even close to us, right? So when you have that hubris, uh, because of your success, then you move to the stage to where you are undisciplined pursuit of more, right? So you move into unrelated areas of business, like GE did, right? When they succeeded in one area, that is electric appliances, when G was started, I think by Edison, and there was a huge success. They had that first mover advantage, and they moved into so many different products and services, right? And it became like another Tata group. And there was undisciplined pursuit of more and more. And what happened later was their resources were spread very thin, right? So they could not provide resources for their cash cows, their core competencies. So then you reach the stage three, where your main expertise or main competency, it gets stopped from funds and resources, and since you do not invest in further products, more innovative products, the product on which your revenue depended, it dies out. And naturally, every product has a product life cycle, PLC, right? So if you have not invested and your or the businesses don't do too well, uh, then what you do is you invest more and more in areas which do not have the potential to produce revenue for your company. But since you have fallen in love with those products, you are investing in those products to keep them alive, right? So your real products or real competencies, they get stopped. So you are denying the risk and peril of doing business in areas which will actually serve in good stead in future, but you don't do that. So gradually you gasp for salvation. You pant. You do not. But there can be kinks, like your product may give you some results temporarily, okay, but again there's a downturn, right? It may move up, but again downturn, and finally it dies, right? So it leads to capitulation and irrelevance and death. Now let me give you two examples. One is a company which actually moved up from here, right? And another company which went down and down, and now it's almost gone, right? Any example which comes to your mind of a company which pulled its socks up and survived, and another company which could not do it, from your
Sir, so
experience?
I just shared that denial was my mind came Canon.
Okay.
It had the technology, digital technology,
Nokia.
but it did not pick that up. In fact, it put it on a back burner and it said, "No, our film is what makes sense to us," and they internally killed digital.
Yeah. Correct. In fact, there's a very famous article. If they're in the internet, if you search for it, the name of that article is "Who Killed Nokia, comma Nokia Did." Right. Look up that article. It's a very interesting article. Who killed Nokia? Nokia did. They killed themselves. Right. Okay. Right. Good. So any instances of any company which actually pulled its sock up and they pulled themselves out of an abyss, which they were sure to die, but now they are again a big name.
Sir, Bajaj.
Yeah, Bajaj. Yes, they did pull themselves up. Very good.
Sir, Bata.
Bata, okay, to some extent, but Bata is not the Bata which was in the past. It has yielded position to many upstarts. Yeah, but it has survived. Yes, You're right. Example which comes to my mind is IBM, right? They were huge, they were humongous, they were called the Big Blue, IBM, right? So then in the 80s and early 90s, they realized that uh, the computer business, which actually made them big, it will not sustain them, right, in the long run because of the competition, right? Like Dell came in, HP came in, so there were Toshiba came in, and the competition was huge, and they did not have the advantage of cheap labor and all that. So what they did was they actually sold off the core business. Till that time for IBM was the core business was hardware, right? The computer. Now they sold it off to Lenovo, a Chinese company, right? And they moved to software, lock, stock, and barrel. Now IBM is a software company. It's no longer a hardware company. And that decision they took 30 years back. And the rest is history. So IBM continues to be a humongous company, as big, if not bigger, but as big as they were when they were known as the Big Blue, right? A company which actually denied the risk and peril, right? The name which comes to my mind is uh, Anil Ambani, right? His company. In fact, there's a joke which goes like this: that how do you make a million, right? Written by Anil Ambani. How do you make a million? Start with a billion, right? He started with a billion. Now he's just a millionaire, right? So he went into many unrelated businesses, he went into what film producing and all those things, which he did. I mean, he tried his hand at trying to persuade the government to give him the when the government went for Rafale deal. He also pitched in for the for doing some ancillaries. But nothing actually worked for them, right? So in fact, at one point of time, the BACS, which was one of the flagship companies of Anil Ambani, it was doing so well in they apart from Mumbai, they did come in here, and the telecom was actually to begin with, it was with Anil Ambani, which would have been a money spinner for them. I mean, the look at Geo, which later came, and Geo could have been, Anil Ambani's telecom business could have been as successful as Geo if he had put his mind to it. But because of the hubris born of success, undisciplined pursuit of more, getting into unrelated areas, now Anil Ambani's company is gone. It's virtually dead, right? All right, so we will stop here, and if you have any questions, last questions, we can take a few questions. Then we can stop and take it further in the next class. Any questions, guys? All right. Okay.
So
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I was just asking, how, when you are outside the organization as a consultant, how can you help the company recognize this? Are there any set like tools or steps, or it is just a part of experience and knowledge?
See, Banita, the Muhammad has to come to mountain. Mountain will never go to Muhammad.
Okay.
Right. So unless the top management realizes, there's no way the consultant. I mean, if it is an external consultant, there's no way he or she can persuade any top management for going in for the intervention. That's not possible. Otherwise, what will happen is the top management in that organization would feel that you are doing it for money, right? You want the assignment, that's why you are trying to sell it to him. So it's not a question of selling, right? Selling never works. So it's a question of buying. Unless the top management buys it, there's no way OD specialist can help in this matter.
So what are the salient quality for that? Salient qualities for an external trainer?
Okay, so that we will be taking up in subsequent classes.
Yeah.
We will take up.
Sir, I want to ask one thing.
Yeah.
There are so many theories of change available, but still organizations, even big organizations, fail to change.
Mm-hmm.
So what can be is there any strategy for revival also? Because decline can happen to any organization.
Right. See, the need, it has to be a felt need, right? And unless the management sees the writing on the wall, it's very difficult. You may be from Harvard and you know all the theories, right?
Yes.
But unless you see the writing on the wall, it's never possible, right? So like I did a wood intervention for a company in the transport sector, and this company had it's a very old company. They were into trucking business and transportation business, and in mid 90s they wanted to get into the to express delivery business like DHL, Blue Dot. And the people who actually joined this particular company, which was hived off later from the main group, they were from that trucking business. And trucking business, as you may know, it's a non-time bound business. Like जब मेरा full truck load हो जाएगा तब मैं आपको पहुंचा दूंगा. Whereas in express delivery you have to stick to a timeline, right? So they hired me for inculcating a sense of urgency to these old employees. So I mean, we tried to drill into them, the top management, the MD, that intervention of this kind, it takes time. It doesn't happen in say 6 months or 9 months or 1 year. But the MD, who was actually young, he had passed out from the US and he had come and joined the father's company in 2000s, and he was like everything must happen yesterday, right? So and we were given a very short time frame for this particular intervention of 9 months, right? And no, 18 months. So we started the work, and somewhere down the line he felt he became very impatient, and he said nothing is happening, our culture is not changing in 6 months time. And after we had worked for them for about 9 months, they just truncated and finished up the contract, saying that things are not moving, right? So I mean, it happens. Like, you have to be prepared for all kinds of eventualities. So the top management comes in various shades. So don't expect them to be reasonable, because they have the money and you are the external consultant. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt, and yeah, and then move on. I mean, that's what we did. So it happens,
Okay,
right?
sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining in, and hopefully we will meet next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
A lot. Bye.